morning. I don't know. You were talking about having something to tell us.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah. Well, all the paperwork is done, I guess. So I feel okay saying it. Um, but we are expanding. So that's kind of absolutely terrifying and wonderful all at the same time. We close next week. So I'm not
That's exciting. Congratulations.
Thank you so much.
Tell us more.
Yeah, so we will be
Yeah,
we will
Chris is
be
taking notes.
Chris already knows. Chris has the press release. uh
That's called an embargo
that's
for
right.
those who
That's
don't
right.
know
That's
how
right.
journalism works
Yeah.
It's
sometimes.
good. It's
So
good to be.
yeah, Chris, don't write anything until Monday. Thanks. uh essentially so Biloba Brewing Company is in Brookfield. And they've been around for almost 10 years now. Uh Started by Gordon and Jean Lane. Really, really wonderful people. Um, he has been in the beer industry for a very long time, and this was kind of their fun project where he is like a mad scientist where you have a conversation with him and he starts laughing and his hair just kind of sways a little bit and he's constantly talking about different ideas and things that he has. And so Rob, my business partner, and I have been customers of theirs for, as long as they've been open. Rob actually did a photograph them for Chris. Do you remember Edible Milwaukee or
Yeah.
Edible Magazine?
Yep.
Um, so for one of the early issues of that, Rob photographed Gordon and Jean for that. Because as far as it goes, beer in the Milwaukee area, they were probably close to, if not the first after the big three to open, Sprecher, Lakefront, and Milwaukee Brewing Company. I think he was right along the same timeline as Brenner and some of the other people.
Mhm.
But he's doing everything from lambics to Scottish ales to a bunch of things. But he is, he's getting older in age. He's got a bunch of grandkids, and just kind of seemed like a natural progression to hand it off to someone else. They had kind of truncated hours because he just didn't want to be open, which to some people that's that's a fortunate, wonderful thing. For us, we don't have that that choice, I guess. But yeah, so he's just ready to kind of retire, move on, and try to we've had a really wonderful relationship with him for a while, so it just kind of seemed like something that made sense. He did a great job of creating community with the people who are regulars at his tap room, with the people who are in Brookfield. For those of you who aren't familiar with Milwaukee, it's probably about 20 minutes west of our current tap room and brewery. It's like literally one street. It's the same street we're on. You just take that left a little bit. So take that west and then take a right and then you're there. So it's kind of nice in proximity, but it's far enough away to where it probably won't share the same customers. We'll do both coffee and beer. We still got to figure out a lot of the logistics on when it'll actually be open as Vennture, and if we're going to open with just beer or try to do beer and coffee at the same time, or if we're opening with just weekend hours. There's a lot of questions on top of continuing to operate our current space and do things. So a lot of questions still, a lot of things that we're constantly plugging away on day in day out. But yeah, that's a thing.
Cool.
Chris,
Who has the questions? I have so many questions.
Maggie is first.
I
Maggie,
mean,
ladies first.
I don't want to. I mean, Gosner, if you need to jump in, at it.
Go ahead.
Well, first of all, congratulations, Simon. I think
Thanks.
that's really wonderful. I think it speaks to the Milwaukee business and what you're doing for the community that you're already in, that you're able to grow and expand. I guess how I say this from someone who ran 2 different tap rooms
Mhm.
in 2 different locations. How do you expect to adapt to the consumers in that area and
Yeah.
that community?
Yeah, that's a great question. And it's something that we have a lot of questions about ourselves. Um, I'm not exactly sure how to do that in the best possible way. Some of the ideas that we've had were to hire a community like liaison. I'm sure I could come up with like a sexier name than that, but essentially somebody who's in tune with what's happening in the area around. And he's got a mug club membership of about 80 strong that we're going to just invite into ours pro bono for the year. So that I think will help. It's a already established business with established customers, so I think that will also help. We also told Gordon that if he ever wants to just show up at the bar and play court jester, he can totally do that. And he's down with that. Which I think is a little bit different than opening up a brand new spot, or opening up, purchasing another person's space that isn't connected to the community or held in high regard in the community. So I think that's going to be helpful, figuring out if it makes sense to kind of get somebody in there who's connected to the surrounding area, and then having another person who's connected to our current area, because we're going to be bouncing between the two. So having a point person at both spots, and then having our overarching kind of general manager taking care of scheduling and events and some of the other kind of random things. So it's a lot. It's something we put thought into, especially seeing other places that have opened second locations or third locations that have struggled, because it's tough. Like for us, we also need the production. It's not just a shell of a space. It's going to be an active brewery, so there will be production that's happening there. I think also our taproom staff does a really great job of connecting with our customers. And with having the coffee aspect, it gives kind of a broader spectrum of connection. We'll be open the majority of the day versus a handful of hours in the afternoon, evening on the latter half of the week. So it gives more opportunity to touch people. We have a handful of people at our current tap room who are there 2 to 3 times a day regularly. They're getting coffee, they're getting tea in the afternoon, then they're getting a beer at night before they go home. So it's really a space where it's more cheers than it is airport bar. You don't have a bunch of random people coming through. You have a lot of regulars who are stopping there because it's their home. So figuring out how to really create that space and create that comfort and do that is, I think that's a challenge for any business, regardless of what irregardless of what they're doing, whether it's beverages or food or retail or whatever. Finding a way to create that space, and make it accessible, and a place where people can connect.
Yeah. Well, you answered the first part of my question.
Damn.
Yeah.
I'll take it back.
But good job. Good job. Because I was going to ask if you were going to brew there. Obviously, you're going to brew there now.
Yeah.
What is that going to look like? Is it going to be just the same beers that you brew at your current location, or are you going to try new things? And I know it's early in your planning, but
Mm-hmm.
what are the thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, it's early in our planning, but this has been in the works for probably like 2.5 years. So it's been kind of in some form of process for quite a while. It's like the worst held secret in the world. Um, I think part of the idea is to use that facility. That facility has a 10-barrel brew house with kind of 2 fermenters and 2 brights. You could use, I mean, essentially it could be 3 fermenters and 1 bright, but there's not a ton of fermentation tanks. So for us, that would be like our North Ave Pale Ale. We would like to do kind of a year-round lager if possible. That
Nice.
would be
Yeah.
wonderful. I would enjoy that.
Yeah.
Everybody's like, mhm.
I don't know. I mean, we do a
Lot of
year-round
head
saison.
nodding.
I mean, shit. February beer should be saison, and March beer should be saison, and May beer should be saison. But I mean, whatever. Not everyone likes kimchi. It's fine.
When you see it saison, when you have a house saison, you get it every time. That is my philosophy. Every time I'm at
100%. Yeah.
I'm a regular. One of my beers, one of my 2 or 3 beers or whatever will always be the Heights, because special beer and it needs to be applauded.
So I mean, but that's something that we produce at our North Avenue facility on the regular, and we have a 10-barrel saison tank that we just kind of keep there for that purpose. And it doesn't move like a lager, so it should be fine. But just trying to find things that we can create that are bigger batches, and then use the North Ave facility for our IPAs and for our fruited sours, for our maybe for a bigger barrel aged beers. We might actually do those at the Brookfield facility because they have rakes, which is really, 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 really helpful. And it's a 10-barrel system, so we could probably put in 10 barrels worth of grain and then do a 5-barrel batch, which would be helpful. So, because like for our night crew, we brewed that a couple of months back, but that was 3 mashes. So it's an extremely long day on our system because it's just not designed for that.
There's just so much volume that it.
Yeah. So we throw in grain, we do our first mash, and then we sparge to about 4 barrels, and then we put in more grain, empty that grain, put in more grain, use the wort that's there to be kind of our strike water, then we sparge, and then we use it again. So it's not very efficient, or at least definitely not efficient based on our time, but it's a good beer, so whatever.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the idea.
Cool.
Yeah. Well, and so I wanted to touch more on the physical location as well, because I've always been intrigued with Boloba being out there in Brookfield, because I know I've talked with Chris about this and other folks about kind of how the breweries are set up in the Milwaukee metro area. And that location is one that is essentially the only show in town. It has been holding it down there.
Yeah.
And you have to drive at least 12 minutes or so before you get to any brewery, because you're either going down to Raise Grain and Waukesha, or you're going all the way over.
I like Waukesha.
Yeah, Waukesha. Yeah,
that's my favorite.
Got kind of combination there, or over in Toast.
Yep.
And so it's kind of there. Where was this a situation where I know you talked about your relationship already, that kind of a right place, right time. You knew the people. Was it just kind of we're going to expand because it's there, or was this a simple did you look at other places? Did you look also at places in like Bayview or Walker's Point that had a bunch of breweries, or was it more of we like where this brewery is in Brookfield, and this?
Yeah, that's a great question. Yeah. No, we didn't look anywhere else. Is the simple answer. I think that where Gordon is and where Beloba is a it's a good spot. There is nothing around, and there are people who are thirsty. So I think being able to create community in a space, in a place that people want that and need that. So I mean, one of the things that I used to be a churchgoer, avid, like my whole life. Um, post opening a business, that has not been a thing. I don't have time, unfortunately. But the thing that I do miss is the community that was around it and the random people that I would meet after service, or like just this weird, this weird amount of different people from different places in life and different situations, different everything, all in the same place for the same reason. And that, it's not something that I'm necessarily ever going to go back to either, but it doesn't mean that I can't create that space for people. And not saying that my tap room is a church, but it kind of is. That it's a space for people to come and meet and meet other people amongst the common thing, right? I mean, the whole idea of having coffee and beer is that both of those liquids are things that connect people. You go out to a bar with your friend, or you go meet somebody for business over coffee, or you just sit and journal, with your latte. I think it's something that the things that we create are a conduit to creating community and opportunity for people to connect. And I think that's a bit of a different approach than some places take. And I think that's part of the reason also why Brookfield was kind of a something that looked good, not just because there's no beer around, but there's not a lot of places for people to go and connect that aren't like a big box store, that aren't an Olive Garden or a Fuddruckers or a whatever the hell it is. So like, oh yeah, that was a fun one.
Is there actually a there is a Fuddruckers out there?
There is a Fuddrucker. Yeah, I used to swap the like first letters of things.
Oh, of course, spoonerize it. Yeah.
Yeah, so I used to do that all the time, and we were doing that in college, and I went to a Christian college, and I just yelled out Fuddruckers, but I switched the letters, and I was like, oh,
we've been cursing. I think we can just say it.
Yeah, I mean, now I swear like a pirate, so whatever, Fuddruckers, Red Fuckers, but like then it was I was like, oh my god, I mean, oh my lord. Oh, sweet.
You gotta do a beer named Red Fuckers.
Red Fuckers, yeah. It's a collab with Ale Asylum. All right.
Well, either way, I'm glad that if Beloba is going, is looking to move on, the folks there is that there is still going to be not just a brewery, but a quality brewery, stepping in its place. I think that is really good news, I think, for everyone involved.
Yeah, I think we've Gordon helped us source our brew system, our brew house. He helped us with a ton of things when we were getting started. A lot of questions that we had, he fielded those like a champ, especially since we were just basically noobs. It was, it makes a lot of sense from, I think, a lot of standpoints. It's different. I'm not as familiar with the space as I would like to be. I'm not as familiar with the community as I would like to be. And I don't know that I will be able to be. But that doesn't mean that I can't hire people that understand my vision and or at least me and Rob's vision and our ideas to, create this space that is connected to people and bring people together.
What I mean, I know this is a Vennture story, but to some degree, as Joel kind of mentioned it, that it's the end of the story for Baloba, or I guess my question is kind of, or is it like, do you guys plan to keep any of their beers, or like some kind of like you mentioned,
Hell no.
you know, having Gordon like, you know, hold court or whatever, you know, like be part of that community, because of course, like he is. And but can you talk a little bit about what the kind of continuity plans are there?
Yeah, for sure. Also, a lot of things to figure out as we're going. There's going to be a lot of kind of bumbling along the way. But so is opening a brewery as a home brewer who's bartended at one place. So it never pulled a shot of espresso. Opening a coffee shop, that's a fun one. You just kind of learn along the way. I think continuity wise, just trying to create, look at some of the recipes that Gordon did, and he's got a really solid cream ale called Section 25. His Saison on Oak has been on since the day he opened.
That is a quality beer.
So figuring out getting the information on how he's making that beer. But a couple of things, kind of keeping some of those things on. Of course, bringing more accessibility to the actual beer too. He was still filling growlers, which I don't know if we're gonna do or not. That's gonna be a point of contention, I'm sure. But we will have 4-packs in cans that are available, which he had done, 4-packs of 12-ounce bottles of some beer. So there will be more to-go options. There will be more, ways that people can interact with us, and hoping to start a couple of leagues. We have a cribbage league at our current North Ave location, and probably start a cribbage league out there. And there's a couple of opportunities to keep some of the things going that they had already done, and then constantly. I'm sure. I don't know. There's a lot of things like how do you do an anniversary party? Do you do it at one location? Do you do it at 2 locations? Is it an anniversary based on when you open the second location? Well, like, I don't know. I don't know what any of those
Porque
things.
no los dos. Just let it rip.
I
More
know.
parties.
Yeah. I mean, it makes
Baloba's founding. You can do Baloba's founding. You can do Vennture Brookfield opening. You can do Vennture North Avenue openings. Just
you open enough locations, it'll just be anniversaries
parties
all year round,
all the time,
every weekend.
Yeah. I mean, and the biggest thing for me is, when we opened Vennture on North Ave, it was 100 hours plus a week. It was never seeing my family. My son at that point, Liam was born in February. So his birthday's on Sunday, February 11th, in 2018. And we opened in July 7th, 2018. So he was a little tiny baby boy. And now he is a full raging anger machine, but so awesome and creative and wonderful, and all of the things that 6-year-olds will be. But like it's realizing that we are in kind of control of some of that destiny. That having a location that is kind of operating well and operating is very, very functional. Being able to focus a little bit on the other location, but then not sacrificing everything that we've worked as far to get as far as like some semblance of family life. So hiring good people, putting them in good places, and then trying to make sure that the community still feels taken care of and looked out for, on top of continuing to make really good beer. And Saison.
What's the timeline for opening as Vennture?
It's a great question. I got to figure that out by Monday. No. That's right. So we applied for a federal permit a couple of weeks, 2 weeks ago, when we knew that okay, this is actually going to be a thing. So in order for us to brew there, right now we can use our second location, or extension of premise, so we can use that right now,
To sell
to sell
beer,
beer.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We applied for our federal brewing license, and then we'll apply for our state brewing license, which is pretty quick once we get our federal, to actually make beer there. And that would allow us an extra taproom license as well. But there's a lot of, I'm not exactly sure. Oh, I got that same glass, Greg. It's a good glass. I'm not sure.
Do
what
you have the same
timeline is.
beer?
Ooh, no, I have a year. Ooh, oh, no. I don't think I have any of those in my possession.
What is that? That's a Venture beer.
Yeah, it's Hold Music.
Oh.
So funny thing about that beer is we actually canned a bunch of that beer during the pandemic. It was supposed to be one of our first like barrel-aged saisons. Didn't realize that it had gotten extremely oxidized in the transfer from the barrels to the bright tank, and so we canned it all, and then we opened we had like rolled a couple of labels on, and then opened, or like one of them actually fell and like punctured a hole in the side. So then Rob like poured it into a glass, and it was purple. And Rob's like, this beer is not supposed to be purple. It had wheat and oats and a bunch of like higher protein things in it because it was a barrel-aged saison. Turns out when you have higher protein beers and it gets oxidized, it turns purple. So we ended up dumping the whole batch, and then we still had a shit ton of labels. So the next batch of beer that came out of that barrel ended up being that beer that Greg is drinking, and it is not oxidized. Lessons are learned.
Nice.
Opening, I don't know. As soon as we possibly can. We'd like to be at least somewhat functional by St. Patty's Day.
Oh, okay. I mean,
the interior is just kind of needs our spin on it, but I mean the tap lines are there. I think we'll probably figure out a new layout for furniture, and then do some paint, change some signs, do a couple of things to make
and that's the March target, not that's not the brewing target, right? I mean, federal licenses are
right. Who knows?
a couple months,
Well,
right?
I mean, maybe there's
Yeah.
not a lot of breweries opening up these
That's
days.
true.
So
Yeah.
so it's I don't know. Maybe it might be quicker
Okay.
than that. Might be longer. I don't know. But at least then, we should hopefully be able to be open and functioning somewhat, even if it's on a truncated kind of weekly schedule. Buying all the stuff for the cafe side of it is a little bit of a investment as well. So getting the espresso machine in, getting the grinders, getting the drip machine, it's probably like, it's a solid 50,000. So
Yeah.
Can
I ask another question?
You can do whatever you want unless Greg says
Well, I'm
no.
asking Greg. Greg's the boss here.
No.
He's the
We also
arbiter.
have to roast. We also have to save time to roast him for his Bud Light. So
Yeah, the chat was going hot during that.
it
We
was
were all
it
off.
was off the hook. Okay. So one thing that I have always liked about Beloba and its location is, like people think about Brookfield and they think what you kind of alluded to is like big box, like 6-lane Blue Mounds, and there's kind of a there's kind of a aesthetic that people associate with Brookfield, Milwaukee people, I guess maybe. but I mean it is the most dominant like landscape in Brookfield, and
Sure.
Beloba is not in that. I mean, people think about a brewery in Brookfield, and you might assume like strip mall,
Yeah.
you know, whatever, and not that like whatever, that's fine, but there is this kind of little downtown. It feels like a little historic, a little, you know,
Right.
they're like the train tracks go through there, and it
Yeah.
used to be a stagecoach station, and like if there is a downtown Brookfield, this is it.
Yeah.
Was that location kind of appealing to you in like a like Venture is very good at like you've alluded many times to like the building the community and having that feel and reflecting it and having it be a space for that.
Mhm.
Like was that a particular part of the appeal of Beloba?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I would be remiss if I said no. Remiss? I would be incorrect if I said no. I mean that space is and that stretch is awesome. I mean, you go down there and it feels like this like cutesy little downtown area.
It is like a
Uh,
little walkable area,
yeah,
which
right,
I think people don't really associate with, you know, there's this, well, like a
right.
salon, there's
I
a
mean,
like a
it looks
gift
like
shop or something.
Elm. Was it Elm Grove or whatever is right
Yeah,
there?
yeah.
Yeah, so it's kind of like this little space that's apart from the big box store, or the mall, or the office high rise. Which I mean, there's a good amount of office space in Brookfield, right? Especially on Blue Mound and that direction. There's a lot of like office parks. Um, it's very
And
different
those are
than that.
customers, right?
Yeah,
Like,
those are
I mean,
customers for sure.
like happy
Right.
hour, right?
100%. I mean, where's your business going to go for happy hour? I don't
Mhm.
know. I would like to say Venture. You should. But that's also a different that's a different constituent base than we have at North Ave because we don't have business parks around at all. We have a lot of transient people who are passing by us. We have a neighborhood, but that neighborhood is also, people aren't necessarily stopping at our place to have one before they go home. They're picking up their kid on their way home. So
Mhm.
it's kind of a different feeling versus, at 4 p.m. you're going to have a beer and then you're going to pick up your kid at 5. So I think that space uh, is going to be awesome. There's like a great patio space right out in front of it that we want to try and utilize. There's a parking lot which is fun because
That's
we
new to
do.
you.
Yeah, we do not have a parking lot. I in the summer, or at least when it goes to alternate side parking, I move the Venture van every single day just to make sure it's on the right side of the street. So yeah, I mean there are things that I think will be pretty great, but I think that downtown space also is um, being developed a bit as well. There's a handful of apartment buildings and condos that are going up a block away from there, and I think there's a decent amount of development that's planned in the near future right over there. So, the dichotomy of being a business owner or like the weird part about being a business owner and then being a small business owner or like having I don't know what the word is, a ethos um is how do you create a space that continues to perpetuate the brand that you created
Mm.
while being able to pay off my credit card debt that I accrued from the first space. um So like there's always if you don't discuss profit or if profit is not some form of motivation, then you're consistently going to be in a weird space where you can't do cool shit. Revolution is a great example, right? Like they can do a lot of cool shit because they have a lot of kind of underlying um consistency with their bottom line profit. Um and they can have a fucking barrel forest, with a spreadsheet of what's in each barrel, and then blend random things and do whatever they want.
Yeah, can we just pause for a moment to
Yeah.
appreciate Rev's
That's-
barrel program? Like, yeah, wow.
Shout out to Marty and Victor. I have nothing to do with it. Marty's the
Yeah.
man.
I need to
So.
meet him someday. He came to Raise. He's been around.
Yeah,
Just
he's around all the time. That's why I'm like,
I know.
let me know.
I have
I'll
like
make sure he pops in.
3-year-olds. Anyways,
As a side note, real quick,
yeah,
go back to this.
hit
He
it.
does have his own barrel aging, consultation service
Yeah,
called Barrelonics. So if you do want to ask him questions, or if anybody wants to ask him questions or help them get started with their own barrel aging program, Barrelonics. There you go.
Nice. Yeah, I think that kind of going back to the broader question is like to extract money out of the equation when it's a business is kind of asinine. I think that having morals and an ethos that help guide how you make a profit makes more sense. So I think that there's a possibility for a good amount of profit to be made in that space. And Vennture on North Ave has been fairly successful for us, which is great. But when you talk about 2 people plus production plus other people, and I think we're at 9 staff right now. In the summer we ballooned to anywhere between 15 to 16. On a small scale, that's a decent amount of people, and I'm partially responsible for them being able to put food in their mouths.
Mm-hmm.
So that's going to balloon to a little bit more with the second location, but being able to not having as much trepidation about saying, yeah, your paycheck is going to be here this week. Is I think it puts me in a better mental space, being able to, maybe reach out and think through, what's it look like to hire a full-time brewer, or hire a full-time salesperson, or hire somebody who's tending to the communities that we are a part of.
Mm-hmm.
I think that that makes me, anytime anyone opens a business and they say that they're like 100% positive it's going to work, I'm a little weirded out about that. But
I was gonna say, are you nervous at all? I mean,
hell yeah.
but I mean,
we're buying the building and the business, so
okay.
it's which there's a lot of trepidation there. It's not cheap. So there's trepidation, but I think that also makes us more cognizant about the decisions that we do make, because it does matter.
Mm-hmm.
The people who we are employing and the people who we are servicing do matter.
Mm-hmm.
So finding ways to continue, shit. I want people in Brookfield to be able to have a great date night at our spot. I don't know. Like, for me as a father, and having a gaggle of kids, 3 kids. It's like for my wife and I to get away, it's $20 an hour minimum. So like,
It's got to be a good date. It's got to be a good date.
It has to be a good date. Plus, like, if I need to travel,
The pressure.
if I need to travel an hour to get to Bayview and an hour to get home, that's $40, man. On top of what I'm paying at Good Kind. So I'm in for a solid $300 on top of, and additional travel. So I think that cool spaces and good food and good beverage can go to people where they're at. And I think that there's enough great beer in Bayview. There's a lot of good beer downtown. I don't know. Let's go west.
So, Simon, We want to actually at the end of the day give you one last round of applause because it's tough times, and if y'all are good enough to be trying to move out and branch out, and more people can drink your coffee and your wonderful beer,